Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I promised a video on the upcoming big transit of Uranus and Mars conjunct the North Node. And so here it is. I have come across some really interesting information in regards to this in the last few days that I am super excited to share with you. So if you don't already know, Uranus is going to conjunct the North Node along with Mars on July 31st. And this happens only every 15 or 15 and a half years. So what I mean by that is this cycle of Uranus conjunct the North Node. It only happens every 15 or 15 and a half years. And interestingly, I've been accessing some information recently where there's been previous astrologers. One of the names is Robert Blatsky. I apologize if I'm saying his last name incorrectly, but I just discovered him actually, and I listened to one of his talks on this cycle of Uranus conjunct the North Node. And interestingly, what he says is that whenever Uranus conjuncts the North Node, there is typically a new utilization of astrology or a new form of astrology that emerges. And if you don't already know, Uranus is correlated to astrology. Mercury is also correlated to astrology. I would say both of them really are correlated to astrology. And it makes a lot of sense because Mercury and Uranus have a unique relationship. Mercury and Uranus are both associated with the nervous system, the brain, and this is really about passing information throughout the body. And I always like to think about this as, you know, Uranus, whether it's in your own natal chart by placement of house and sign, or it's by transit and it's transiting your chart somewhere. This is where we can have these sudden insights because it is this part of our brain that can really have access to how we would perceive past, present, and future, or time and space, right? But Mercury and Uranus work together to actually have us tap into this bigger version of reality than our conscious mind can truly grasp in any given moment. And yet, we do have this part of our brains that we can access that is able to traverse this infinite timeline of our own soul trajectory and the information that is necessary to guide us into right place, right time, right people, right situations for our own enlightenment, right? So meaning enlightenment, just meaning this being or becoming aware of all of the all, let's just say all that is, right? And so there is this part of us that is guided by that, and we may not be, our conscious minds may not be able to completely grasp it, but this is how Uranus can actually be perceived as traumatic experiences too, because we may not have the psychological development to completely understand these what would be shocking events or traumatic, we would perceive as traumatic events, because we don't know how to integrate it yet. And so this is why I always like to refer to Uranus as also this integrative aspect of our consciousness, this aspect of our consciousness that when we begin to gather the pieces, when we begin to, over time, or what we perceive as time, of our own psychological development, when we are able to be aware of the more, we are able to actually integrate these experiences. And this actual brilliance that comes from these experiences where we've had to integrate more than we could completely understand in the moment, right? And yet this is also this part of the brain function that actually has us have these sudden insights and aha moments and sudden awakenings, unpredictable events, unpredictable awarenesses that can come, and this unique brilliance that we can personally bring. And it is through that recovering of integration of our experiences and the healing of by integrating our experiences, that we bring this unique brilliance to humanity, and really to this humanitarian piece of our own consciousness that we all really naturally have, where we can bring that humanitarian consciousness of understanding the value of the diversity of not only experiences, of our own selves, of others, and of course of all the species, and how it's all interrelated and integrated to support itself through all these different avenues of being, right? So Uranus and Mercury are both associated with astrology, because astrology is really looking at life from an objective point of view rather than a main only subjective point of view, right? And so it helps us to integrate archetypes and the archetypal experience that we all experience in this solar system, because we're a part of the solar system. We are part of the consciousness of this solar system that is actually interrelated as a bigger being. And so Mercury communicates that, it perceives that, it can perceive that. And this is where, through our own personal experience, we can actually pass information that's more objective, this Uranian piece, through the lens of astrology. Now, so this cycle of Uranus conjunct the North Node happens, as I said, every 15 or 15 and a half years. And the way that it lines up in this cycle is that it happens by a sextile. And you know, it's not always an exact sextile, but it's close, right? And a sextile is basically moved from, 60 degrees in the sky. And so therefore that would be skipping a sign into the next, right? So the last one that actually happened was March 7th not March 7th. It was March 30th of 2007. This is so fascinating because March 30th of 2007, this Uranus conjunct the North Node was in Pisces. And thanks to Gary Caton, who is an astrologer, he posted something about this Uranus conjunct the North Node in Pisces that happened on March 30th, 2007. And he was talking about how this asteroid Alise was conjunct as well. And interestingly, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing, wow, this is a really important piece of information and really helpful to integrate this particular Uranus conjunct the North Node coming up, in my opinion, because in this March 30th, 2007, Uranus conjunct the North Node in Pisces, we had the North Node at 16 degrees. This was the true node. The mean node was at 14 degrees, 58 minutes, so within a degree apart. So whatever, if you use the mean node or the true node, just so you have that information. Uranus was at 16 degrees, 4 minutes. Mercury was in a balsamic conjunction to Uranus at 13 degrees, 8 minutes. Balsamic conjunction means a completing cycle. So remember I said, Mercury and Uranus are correlated to astrology and the communication of astrology, Mercury and Uranus. This higher mind, this capacity to look at information from an objective point of view and an archetypal or cosmic point of view, right? This is very much the astrological practice. So Mercury is in a balsamic conjunction to Uranus, conjunct the North Node, right? And then we also have the asteroids Hygiea at 16 degrees 44 minutes and Panacea 17 degrees 31 minutes. This is so fascinating because Hygiea is about health and healing practices. Okay, so you can look her up, Hygiea. She's H-Y-G, I believe it's E-I-A or I-E-A. You could check that out. Hygiea, you can look her up. She's a goddess, right? And she is the goddess of health and healing practices. And then Panacea is also noteworthy because this is like the medicine, right? And Silesia is interesting because Silesia is really deriving from the word sensational. And I was thinking about that. Sensation. What does sensation mean? And what does sensational mean? Sensation derives, it correlates to the senses. And sensationalism is sometimes appealing to the senses, but it is not always factually based. So it's kind of to sensationalize something it doesn't mean that it's not true, but it can actually bring this sensationalism that can bring things a little bit out of proportion. Okay, now I find this really fascinating because the Uranus-North Node conjunction is happening in Taurus, which is the sign of the senses and the physical body, and how the senses pass information in different ways, whether it's through touch, feeling, through sound and hearing, through the voice, communication, words. It could be through art, right? Through the visual. Psychic information. Taste, smell. And Mars is conjunct. Mars is the planetary guide to Aries energy, and it also is a planetary guide to Scorpio energy. It is the masculine form of Scorpio energy, whereas Pluto as planetary guide to Scorpio, Taurus is opposite sign, right? The feminine planetary ruler of Scorpio is Pluto, right? So being that the South Node is in Scorpio, this is really interesting to have Mars in a conjunction to Uranus and the North Node, and then therefore opposing. An opposition is just in the opposing sign, right, to the South Node in Scorpio. Mars is all about initiating something new, and it is about initiating new instincts in our evolutionary trajectory. So where Pluto is the ruler or planetary guide to Scorpio, where we've actually programmed the unconscious mind into these defaults and automatic pilots on how we survived in our perceptions of thrival in the past, Mars is how we actually recover our capacity to actually, let's just say as an example, get out of survival mode and get into thrival mode, right? And this can be initiating new things, new evolutionary steps, new ways to actually evolve. Now, what's really interesting is this piece of the census, right? And going back to those asteroids that were conjunct the North Node Uranus conjunction back in March 30th of 2007. And interestingly, okay, before the nodes moved into Taurus and Scorpio. By the way, the nodes actually moved into Taurus and Scorpio January 19th of 2022. And before that, we were experiencing the nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius. And so the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius from May 6th of 2020 to January 19th of 2022. And during that nodal cycle, which is an 18-month cycle, Neptune was in Pisces and square the nodes. And Neptune in Pisces is a very interesting transit that, I say interesting because Neptune is the planetary guide to Pisces. It's the modern day ruler of Pisces. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces. And Neptune takes 164 years to actually travel the entire wheel of consciousness or zodiac. So the fact that we're living in this time frame with Neptune in its own sign is really powerful. It's really, I think, beneficial on a collective level as well as an individual level, because what Neptune does is it actually dissolves what is no longer essential. And it also is a spiritualizing energy. It spiritualizes. It actually dissolves what is not resonant to one's own spirit and one's own connection to the spiritual realm, or to, we could say God, Goddess consciousness, or even the collective unconscious and the collective. Now, Neptune also is this, it's connected to the collective unconscious, as I said, and so therefore it is this part of consciousness that is really about the ocean. So the ocean of consciousness, and how the ocean of consciousness contains everything. It contains all of the archetypes. And so this is why Pisces is actually the culminating sign of the whole zodiac or wheel of consciousness. It actually contains everything. It's like going back into the cosmic womb in order to emerge again into a new version of oneself, Aries. Now, Neptune was square those nodes basically by sign, that entire cycle of the nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius. So Neptune, it can bring this experience of being in the middle of the ocean and there's fog all around and you can't see even your hand in front of you, right? And so you have to tune into your own knowing. You have to tune into this surrendering to God consciousness, to your own spirit to guide you, and to this level of surrender and trust to something bigger than what you are, right? Or what you've perceived yourself to be so far, right? And so, this is why Jupiter and Neptune being co-rulers of Pisces is so perfect, because Jupiter is this part of our consciousness that can intuitively just know things. And it's where we've actually gone out and we've gathered information out in the collective. And then after we've gathered all this information, once we relax and we're done consuming information, we just know. We just know what our path is. We just know what is true for us and what is true for our personal spirit and a connection to source and spirituality, or our own beliefs that support our own reality moving forward. So Jupiter and Neptune actually just recently made a conjunction in the spring of 2022. And this was in Pisces. It was at 25 degrees. You can see where that is in your chart. And so this could have had us really dissolving these old belief systems that aren't really supporting our own spiritual path and our own spirit, in our own expansion of our own beliefs that support us personally, and in the reality that we perceive is next for ourselves and moving forward, where we can be actually opening up new ways of being in the world and new ways of acting on our own behalf based on our own senses. Okay. Now, we can all look back at that Neptune square the nodes, and in that time frame between May 6th of 2020 to January 19th of 2022, and see that old realities were just crumbling. Okay. We all experienced the pandemic globally, no matter where we were, right? So old realities were crumbling, and at the same time, massive information was getting out there, like on all sides of the spectrum, right? And Gemini Sagittarius is about that. And I always think of Gemini Sagittarius as it's not this or that, it's this and that. And so we got to see that, you know, there was a lot of conflicting information. There was a lot of confusion. And this is the thing, is Neptune can present so much of the collective unconscious that it's confusing. And as I said, it's like being in the middle of the ocean and there's fog all around. You have to trust yourself, because there's like there's so much information through like fog. Like you literally just have to trust your own knowing, right? And so Neptune, wherever it is in our own natal charts by house and sign, and aspects to other planets on our natal charts, and also when Neptune is transiting our chart and aspecting planets in our chart, it can bring an element of confusion and misinformation, right? And so I really believe this speaks to the sensationalism that was happening in this last nodal experience before a new North Node conjunct Uranus cycle happened. So July 30th, 31st, we're experiencing that our newest 15 and a half year cycle of Uranus conjunct the North Node. And it is in Taurus, and it is with Mars there. Interestingly, on July 28th, we have a new moon in Leo at about 5 degrees of Leo, almost 6 degrees of Leo. And Mercury is in a first quarter square to Uranus and to the North Node, and in a waning first quarter square to Mars. So that's fascinating, because this can really, when you look at both the cycles and how, you know, no one cycle is just a standalone. I mean, we're going through these cycles where one bridges to the next, to the next, to the next, right? So when you look at this new moon, and how we're having the new moon just days before this Uranus-North Node conjunct Mars, by exact, right? And by the way, on that new moon, Jupiter is in Aries at about 8 degrees and it retrogrades at the new moon in Aries. So this is fascinating because Jupiter is the planetary guide to Pisces, and as well to Sagittarius, which was the South Node up until this new nodal cycle of Taurus and Scorpio that happened, you know, January 19th of 2022. So I know this is a lot of astrological information, but I'm hoping to be giving you all the information that you can bring this information together. I'm going to translate it for you, but bring this information together and really begin to connect the dots. Because going back to this Gemini Sag, it's, you know, as I said, it's about really going out and looking at information. But we can go out and look at all different kinds of information, but at the end of the day, we have to trust our own senses. We have to trust our own gut, because there can be sensationalism out in the world, and we all know through media, right? And so we could, as we're wrapping up the last Uranus-North Node conjunction cycle that was in Pisces, with Hygeia, with Panacea, with Salacia, and with Mercury Balsamic Uranus and the node, right? We could really be looking at how the healing that can happen now is really about trusting our own gut and our own spiritual connection to source, right? But also how if we actually resist information, we cannot really access our intuition, because intuition is a relaxed energy. So where Jupiter rules Sagittarius and that yang energy of the Gemini Sag, where Mercury, yang form of Mercury, ruler of Gemini, planetary guide to Gemini, goes out, gets information from all sources, even when they're opposite, right? Gemini, like the two faces, right? Like, wait, these are very opposite. But when you actually are open to the opposing points of view, then if you're not resistant to one point of view and you just allow yourself to take in information, eventually you're like, okay, I can't take in any more information. I've looked at things from all angles now. I just got to let go. Then the intuition comes in. Then we know things that's so far beyond the conscious mind that we just know. We know where our place is. We know what our truth is. We know what our next steps are. So we don't want to resist information. We actually want to allow information to be there, but know that we will be able to suss out what is true on our path, what actually supports our path, and that truth may not be other people's truth. But we have to be open to the whole collective unconscious so that we can actually really receive all the information we need to have those insights necessary for our next steps. Now, I really feel that this is all so helpful in understanding this next cycle of Uranus conjunct the North Node and Mars in Taurus. Because, I mean, if you're watching this video, you obviously do utilize astrology as a tool of evolutionary consciousness and evolving. And there are many tools out there. Astrology is not the only one, we all know, and astrology is not for everyone. But if you're watching this, it probably has piqued some interest to you, okay? So I really believe that this new cycle and how these cycles of Uranus conjunct the North Node bring new applications of the astrological lens. I really believe that this is very correlated to utilizing astrology as a healing tool. And the reason I say that is because Taurus and Scorpio, so where the nodes are part of what's called the fixed grand cross in the sky. So these are fixed energies. The fixed grand cross is really what supports our survival and thrival and evolutionary trajectory. Fixed energies are the part of our consciousness that we have to lock in some sort of default to support a specific experience on the earth plane to evolve. We cannot evolve if we aren't committed to a certain level of experience. So we have to be committed so that we experience it, we embody it, and it's downloaded. It's downloaded in our unconscious minds, okay? Now, Taurus, Scorpio are oppositions. They work together. And then they work with Aquarius and Leo. Aquarius is an air sign. Its planetary rulers are Saturn and Uranus. So this is very much about commitment, Saturn. And Uranus, this liberation from the realities we've been committed to in the past and the way we structured our consciousness in the past to actually open to new realities, more awareness, more light, more enlightenment, more consciousness, right? And we go in these cycles of doing that. And how? By its opposition to the sun and Leo. This is about how we contribute light in the world. More and more light, more and more light through our own personal Leonian energy, wherever your sun is by house and sign, but also where's Leo in your chart, okay? So we contribute light, and we also encourage the light in others. High vibration Leo is not only our own light and the contribution of our own light, but how we actually give the freedom, Aquarius, for other people and their unique brilliance, their unique light, no matter how different it is. And maybe no matter if we agree or not, we allow that as part of the information that comes through that supports the all, that supports that humanitarian within us that knows that all species are entitled to their existence, no matter how different, and their diversity, no matter how different, because they are in support of the whole and this interrelatedness that we experience on the earth plane, Taurus. And so this is where, you know, we allow others to contribute their light, and we honor that light within them, no matter how different they are, right? And that there is also, in that allowance of others' light, we also allow our own freedom as well. Our own freedom to express what we love, how we love, who we love. This natural expression of our love and our values, Taurus, Scorpio, because we all have a personal evolutionary contribution, Taurus, Scorpio, to humanity, Leo and Aquarius. So with Mars conjunct the Uranus-North Node conjunction in this cycle, it's going to be a 15-year cycle. And I believe the next one's in Leo. I'm going to have to check on that for sure. This is really about Mars initiating new realities. So Mars is our masculine energy, acting on our own behalf, and what it is that would bring initiation of our own healing personally, and also our own freedom in exploration of the mind. So, and how astrology is very much, because of its archetypal understanding, its objective point of view, it can really bring healing of the mind and this capacity for a healthy mind. Because if we utilize the mind in a way that inhibits our personal freedom and expression, it can create mental instability. It fragments consciousness. Uranus in Aquarius is the part of, in its debilitating aspect, or as some would say, shadow aspects, is the fragmentation of the mind. It is mental instability. It is debilitating function of the mind. And I really believe in everything that I've studied with trauma and the healing modalities, that this happens when we are not supported, Taurus and Scorpio, for our own evolutionary purpose, and we are not resourced, Taurus, Scorpio, to actually freely express our own mind and our own personal truth and our own light. When we're not resourced to really contribute our own light. And so we want this allowance of the light, of our own light, of other people's light, no matter how different it is. And honoring that we may not be always enlightened. We may not always be in a moment where we're aware of everything, but we're always in the process. This is a mercurial energy, right? Mercury is about the process. Mercury also rules Virgo, the opposite sign of Pisces. So this is really about, discernment. And actually, it's about sifting through all the information of the collective unconscious, Pisces, of all the information out there and going, well, it works for me. I'm not going to say that that information is bad or wrong. Let's just say that it's not resonant with me. It's not, I have to use discernment in what actually feels right for me and what supports my beliefs, right? And what actually supports my reality. And Virgo's trying to Capricorn. And the structure of my reality, Virgo trying to Capricorn, right? Pluto, the planetary guide to Scorpio, and the South Node is in Capricorn. And it's going to be ingressing into Aquarius in March of 2023. So we're getting real close to wrapping up Pluto and Capricorn, where Pluto's been exposing old realities that are not resonant, that are not actually contributing to the light we desire to contribute, and that are not contributing to what we now currently love and how we currently now love, right? What we love. And so we're building these new realities where, realities are having to crumble so that we can actually build the new reality build the new communities, societies that reflect these values, this, what we love, how we love, who we love, how we want to contribute light in the world. And so I want to make sure I've covered it all. I wrote some notes. There was so much that was coming to mind. I was so inspired and so excited. You know, Jupiter retrograde on July 28th. It's going to be retrograde all the way until November 23rd. And it'll go direct November 23rd in Pisces. So interestingly, it's going to retrograde back into Pisces. So when this happens, Jupiter's going to be, okay, you know, is there anything that's residual that I need to actually clean up or, you know, let go of, that is no longer resonant with my newfound beliefs that support my own healing. Remember that at this time, Mars is actually reflecting back to where Chiron is, because Chiron is in Aries. Chiron just freshly went retrograde in Aries. So this is really about self-healing, healing our identities. And part of that healing is really acting on behalf of our own values, Taurus. Mars is in Taurus right now. And our own beliefs, Jupiter and Aries, right? And how that is part of the healing of allowing ourselves this acting on behalf of our own beliefs and our own values and what we love, who we love, how we love, and how we become in alignment and being completely in alignment with our personal identity. And that means being in alignment with our personal truth, not other people's truth, but our own truth. We have to be in alignment with our true and authentic identity. Pluto in Capricorn is all about authenticity and dismantling anything that is not authentic, that is not really resonant with who you are internally and your structure of reality and how you feel internally. Cancer, Capricorn, right? Now remember that when that pandemic happened, this really happened back in, you know, January of 2020, and the nodes were in Cancer, Capricorn, finishing up Cancer, Capricorn, and then going into Gemini and Sag in May of 2020. So it's something to note, because that's when the world started going into lockdown. So I really believe this really was helpful for us to actually stop the busyness, stop the routines, and go, what about my reality would I want to go back to? And what would I not want to go back to? This is really helpful for us, right? So I hope this is helpful. And if you do find it helpful, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel if you would like. If you feel inclined, you're certainly welcome to share this video. Of course, like the video, comment. I would love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your perceptions of this information. And I'll see you on the next video.